Good evening, everyone. It is May 10th, 2016. I'm going to call this meeting of the Moorhead Public Service Commission to order. Could I have a motion, please, concerning our agenda?
I move approval of the agenda as distributed.
Thank you, Mr. Bakke. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. Could I have a similar motion, please, concerning our consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Ralph. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. Bill, do we have any customers to be heard or recognitions?
We do have one recognition.
Really?
We have, sadly, a good employee is going to be leaving us, and he's here this evening, and so we thought we'd say a couple of words about him. And it's not Travis, but it is someone else.
I had my hopes up.
Well, you just
looks
can't
real
think
sad.
that way.
Yeah.
Travis Schmidt, Electrical Engineering Manager. We have received Sam Jenkins, our GIS Coordinator's resignation. He is planning to leave us on July 15th. That is his expected last date of working for Moorhead Public Service.
He can't.
That's what I kept telling him, but he...
Sam, you're here to stay.
It's not allowed.
So his wife is getting a job at Washington State University in Pullman, Washington, and Sam will be the GIS Coordinator for their internal utility there as well.
So how's he going to do that and do his job here?
That's very difficult, very difficult.
He's not leaving.
I've been to, she could go and he could stay.
I've been to Pullman.
Why would she want him?
Yeah, you didn't talk to me. I've been to Pullman. You don't move to Pullman.
Well, that's coming from Les. You can't listen to Les.
It's the wrong side of the Cascades, for one thing.
So
Congratulations.
Sam has been an integral part of getting our GIS going forward and definitely helped us move in that strategic direction. So we appreciate his service that he's given us. It's been almost 5 years of service to us. So he'll be helping us wrap a couple things up before he leaves and get everything ready for the next person. And we are actually advertising for that position currently. So,
Congratulations, Sam. We're going to miss you. We really are.
Yeah.
so thank you, Sam, for everything.
Yeah, thanks.
And your leaving truly is not negotiable. So just so you understand.
And number 9 on your agenda will be...
Any more good news?
Will be presented by Sam, so you get another shot at him here.
Oh, good.
Oh, good, yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll take whatever shot we can now that he's not going to be here very long. You've done a great job for us, Sam.
Yep.
Any customers to be heard now that you topped that?
No.
Yeah. Members of the City Council. How are you, Heidi?
I am well, thank you. I don't have anything to report. Nothing.
Isn't that refreshing?
Right?
Nothing to say?
We are looking forward to, I think it's Ralph. Are you coming to our,
You looking forward to Ralph?
well, the council's looking forward to the committee of the whole where we get to hear more about the Lake Agassiz water project.
It's actually going to be Dave. I'm out of town. Otherwise, I would be there, but
I expect to be there.
Okay, so
So now you're going to have to look forward to Dave.
we'll look forward to Dave presenting that information. There was
Far
some
more to
action
look forward
taken
to.
last night on the water tower parcel. That was on consent,
Yeah.
so that was no big deal.
So that's done?
cool.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you. Members of the Public Service Commission. Anything to report? Okay. Anybody have any questions on the Public Service Commission? Any comments? Okay. Mr. General Manager.
I have a written report, and if anybody's got any questions, I would welcome them.
Well, how about if we just say, what do you have to report?
Well, I've been instructed to be short.
By whom?
He's laughing.
He's no longer the acting chairman of this meeting. You know that, right?
We had already set the rules before
Okay.
you arrived.
Sure nice to be wanted here. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the general manager based upon his written report?
Well, I have to make one comment. I was going down Southeast Main yesterday, and I had to actually text. I pulled over, and then I texted you, Bill, just so we know. I love spring when I see sky blue PVC pipe all over town.
Yep.
That's going to replace all the stuff we have in the ground. So, you know,
My
if you guys-
only,
if the electrical guys could make a nice color on their stuff too, I would probably acknowledge it as well. But
These are the same guys who think that telephone poles look good.
Yep, they do.
Yeah.
But it's great to see all the water pipe, and to all of you out there, I mean, it's a hassle, we know that, but it's going to be good for the next 100 years. So bear with us as we dig up streets and put new pipe in. But yeah, I just love the sight of sky blue PVC pipe in the morning.
I would like, however, to have some kind of conversation with whoever it was that decided that it was a good time to block off virtually every one of our east-west corridors. Well, that got quiet, didn't it?
Not going to complain about construction.
Really?
Nope.
Okay.
Nor am I.
Okay, I'll be the only one. That brings us down to item 9, which is report on GIS. Update and to approve the updated GIS master plan. So who's going to report on this? Oh, the short timer. Would you like to identify yourself, Sam, to all those people out there who don't know who you are?
Yes. Sam Jenkins, GIS Coordinator, Moorhead Public Service.
For now.
For now. So this, this report is an update on the GIS master plan that the Commission set into action in 2010. That master plan contained 9 items, and the report documents how we've completed those and highlights a few that still have jobs left to be done. In quick summary, those updates are fill the GIS coordinator position and develop a data transition plan so that we can get our existing data into GIS, build our GIS infrastructure, which means the software infrastructure and the data infrastructure, fill up those databases and figure some workflows for maintaining that data. Develop a geometric network, which means make those databases smarter by incorporating the rules that we use to model how our water flows through our pipes, how our electricity flows through our lines. Share that information, that data and those maps with our field crews, and that was one of the main drivers of the GIS master plan in the first place. But also develop a system, an office GIS, so that our office staff know what our field crews are doing as well. And those tasks are still evolving, but ostensibly complete. There are a couple of other tasks, including integration of a maintenance management system, which is a big organization-wide integration of business systems, which we've been looking into but haven't made progress on that too much. And then integrating our engineering models, so our water and our electric engineering software were based upon models that were disconnected from our mapping software, and the work that we've done here is to integrate those systems so that we can do engineering analysis based on the things that are in the ground and mapped as they are. We've made progress on that integration. We've purchased software and configuring software to integrate our electric engineering analysis. Our water engineering analysis is based in GIS, and as the need arises to update that engineering analysis model, we'll be able to integrate it into our existing GIS, which is now water model, which is in GIS. The next section is an updated geographic information systems master plan, which takes those tasks that still remain to be done and sets out a plan so that over the next 5 years we can ensure the GIS progresses as it's meant to do and evolves over the 5-year time frame, as GIS is an evolving system and science. So the master plan update that's proposed here contains 7 items. Unfortunately, the first one is to hire a new GIS coordinator. but also to make an assessment of the staffing levels that the GIS needs so that it can function to the best of its ability with all the infrastructure we have. And send a report to the Budget Committee and the senior management about that staffing of the GIS. We still have a little bit of work to do in terms of configuring the office portion of our GIS. We've made, and we had some delays getting some IT infrastructure working properly, but we have a mapping portal at MPS that is now available for all our staff to use. So the update there will be to train our office staff to use that mapping portal, train them generally, more generally in geospatial analysis, and get people using and identify workflows so that the office staff can be included into that data maintenance and data ownership. As I mentioned, we have more work to do to integrate our engineering analysis software with our GIS, so that will be the next item on the update of the master plan. And a rollover of the computerized maintenance management software integration that was not able to be addressed in the first 5 years of the GIS master plan would be to make a list of MPS business systems that can be integrated with GIS, more than just operations maintenance. Like our customer information system, our SCADA system, our load management systems, our outage management systems, and automatic metering infrastructure systems. The goal of this item would be to make sure that as business systems get built and developed, they are built into a system rather than in isolation. We are trying to solve the problem of isolated data silos, which makes communication difficult and less efficient when you're trying to run an organization which has multiple business segments.
Do you foresee something like a routing system being tied into that as well, or are we too small from a geographic standpoint to actually care? No, a routing system could absolutely be incorporated into that. There are routing services that we can use in our GIS now. I'm not sure that MPS specifically needs a routing system, but yeah, building that platform so that all those business systems can talk to each other includes a routing system, for sure. The fifth task then is to develop a highly available GIS, which is a little bit jargony, but basically it means that the GIS should be there when people need it, and involves making redundant IT infrastructure and redundant workflows so that this GIS system that we're building is always available for people to use it. Number 6 is a new addition to the master plan strategy, which is to develop a facilities GIS. We have a lot of, over the last 5 years and over the history of Moorhead Public Service, we've invested a lot in mapping our distribution infrastructure, but MPS has a lot of in-plant infrastructure that would also benefit from the same efficiencies that our distribution system gains when it is modeled in GIS. Our building facilities can also be modeled in GIS as well. And then the 7th item in the GIS master plan update would be to develop a climate of database decision-making at MPS. This is important because in the past, for workflow and for the tools of collecting spatial locations and the tools of collecting data were not necessarily available to make to enable data collection, which has meant that in the past we've had to make operations decisions and strategic decisions which were not necessarily based on the best data. With the evolution of data collection, and especially geospatial data collection now, we have the opportunity to build tools so that we can answer questions
in the future about the facilities that Moorhead Public Service owns and operates, and building a climate of valuing that data in MPS as part of a strategic plan and as part of Moorhead Public Services policies is a wise decision for future decisions that MPS is going to be asked to make. And that's the summary of my update. to the
Okay,
North Bank.
does anybody have any questions for this gentleman?
Sam, I'm just looking at the timetable that we had been working on, and we started to slide, slip off of that time frame. Was that budgetary? What were the roadblocks to the time frame as it was originally outlined to where we are now and catching
Some
up?
of it was budgetary, some of it was availability of staff time, some of it was infrastructure that we, problems just installing infrastructure that were not foreseen when we originally laid out that plan.
Okay. And are we overcoming those roadblocks as we go into this revised the timetable that you've laid out? Is it, is
I
this a
believe
good
so,
position?
yeah, and I believe some of the tasks here, for example, putting in place strategic directions and policies that enable that emphasize the importance of this would help
Okay.
MPS budget for and allocate time for collecting good data and making infrastructure that enables us to collect good data.
Are we anticipating that then as we start to get ready for our new budget round, that isn't too many months off? 'Cause I just noticed as I was looking at those last items of the work schedule that in 2015, first quarter of 2015, that's where we've started to slide, and now we have an outline for how to proceed and to complete this. I'm just wondering if we're anticipating what needs to be done in order to have that budget in place to get the work done. We have a legacy for Sam to maintain. You're going to hate it in Pullman.
Yeah, Sam's outlined a nice master plan.
Yeah.
He's met with the senior staff. We've talked about it. One of the things that we will do is put it into our strategic plan
Yeah.
as, these are the things we're going to be working on.
Yeah.
And I think that will help. And then, of course, we'll be talking with the budget committee and our staff to make sure that the resources are there.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, Pullman's a nice place, so I lived on the west side of the mountains, so we were Husky fans, so it's just part of the deal.
Well, he's still not going. Ralph, you had a question?
2 items. Well, first of all, I see some of the deadlines here are by the end of 2020, so we really cannot accept your suggestion to leave us. Different question, a real question. So if you compare us to other utilities, where are we in our GIS efforts? Are we woefully behind? Are we cutting edge? Are we somewhere in the middle? Are we right where we should be?
I think the answer to that, Ralph, is somewhere in the middle, but it depends which utility you're comparing us to. So,
So we've just discovered he's running for public office.
He,
Yeah, him, yeah.
in Pullman.
In Pullman, Washington, yeah.
I don't think they have electricity out there.
some of the smaller, there are some smaller utilities which are very definitely just starting off in GIS. Some of the larger utilities, of course, are much more advanced than we are because they have the infrastructure there and the resources available to support that infrastructure. Yeah, that's been my assessment of how I've seen utilities as I've been here working at Moorhead Public Service.
And we have seen, at this board here, we have seen the very positive results of what you guys have done. All of a sudden we have maps that show us, hey, here's where problems are on the water side, whatever it may be, and here's where we should go first. It's been, from that aspect, very impressive already. So thanks for all the work you've done. The whole team has done.
I think Les has a comment.
I have a comment, and I have two questions, I guess. The first one is when we were first talking about GIS for Moorhead Public Service, both the city and the county had a head start, shall we say, on what they were doing. Where in here is the integration with those other folks that are doing almost the same thing, especially the city with the same geographical area? That's question one.
Sure. Moorhead Public Service works with the city and the county. We share database resources, and we work with the city and the county to identify those data products that we can each use. That's one of the things that our ArcGIS server is able to do, is share data products to consumers of that, which include the city, the county. We have a portal which is available to MPS staff, and we have a portal which is available to the public, and infrastructure and maps that are
Was there any
available are on that public-facing portal.
Was there any discussion, Bill, about and since he's leaving, it might be an appropriate time to look at sharing of resources with the city?
Something to always talk about.
Have you?
Trying to keep my answers short.
I
Have we
understand.
talked? Well, I haven't, no, we haven't known about Sam leaving for all that long, and we haven't had a conversation.
Whenever a position becomes vacant, I understand it's an opportunity, and I don't want you to leave either, Sam. But Washington, yeah, it's a nice place to go.
Not that nice.
Oh, shut up. It's an opportune time to look at that. And, the city streets and everything else that we work on are the same thing that folks up on third floor work on, fourth floor, wherever floor they're on.
Well, and Sam may want to describe a little bit how we share that data, because we share the base map, or we get the same base map, but we have specific needs that we pay more attention to than what a shared system may. And we've had IT sharing in the past, we've had others sharing with the city, and sometimes our concern is we get, we share in the cost, but we don't benefit from the service as much. So, I mean, we would be very,
I'm just suggesting
cautious.
that the conversation be held before we advertise for a replacement.
Well, it's being advertised right now, so we
It
would
is?
have to, we
Okay.
would have to,
Well.
but I mean, we do work closely with the city, on
Okay.
their GIS, so we've got a good relationship, and, but I mean, we talked about this at the senior staff level.
All right.
We work closely with the
I'll
city
go
and
on
with the
to- I'll
county.
go on to the second question.
Okay.
I'm okay. I see that in some of the tasks, have the GIS coordinator update desktop server and other software. Isn't that the responsibility of IT? I'm looking at you, Bill.
Oh, you're looking at me?
At the young man who's going to leave us.
You're good.
Well, I don't know specifically the IT question. Whenever you talk about IT, and you'll remember a few years ago when we looked at where to place the IT director, and I had actually proposed putting him under the electric division manager at that time, and you said, no, it should be
It should
under
be
the
higher.
CEO, and
Yeah.
it should be somebody that coordinates with all the divisions.
Yeah.
I would answer that question the same way. I would say IT, and I've asked this question at conferences as well. Engineers have certain things they need to do. GIS has certain things to do. IT supports that, and they make sure there's certain things that occur.
Okay, does the chief financial officer update desktop server and mobile software with financial software?
Most likely not.
Does the water division manager do that for water-related software?
I don't believe so.
And I don't believe Travis does either, so why is one segment, and it's a question that
Yep.
you don't have to answer now, it's just a question I'm bringing up. Why is one division doing it and not the others?
Well, we'll take a look at that. I'm guessing that GIS has, correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, probably some more expertise in the IT area.
Wouldn't be surprised the electrical guy does too.
Yep. And so, I mean, it may be a hybrid. So, I mean, we'll
Just
look
note
into
the
it.
question.
Yep, no, it's a
Thank
good
you.
question. I mean, because it is something that we talk about from time to time, because we deal with cybersecurity in the electric industry, and so it's a question that's out there all the time. You know, how can you have your IT director allow other people to, you know, be in the systems,
Exactly.
update them, and then hold that person accountable as well? So, I mean, there's a rub there that we're always watching for. So
Okay.
I understand the question.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
I love when we have technology presentations.
I'm sure you do, for those of us who understood any of it. I do have a couple of questions, and I want to make a comment. And it's sort of similar in nature to the kind of questions that I like to save for Travis. And I'm looking at a couple of these items here, and you've got approximately 85% complete, and then there's one approximately 40% complete, and one incomplete, and then we have one that's ostensibly complete. And just for purposes of clarification, pardon?
That's Sam's word.
Is it? Yeah, it had to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you're supposed to say that with that. But, so what's the difference, Sam?
They're very much judgment based on what we expect work to be do.
Okay.
What work needs to be done. It's hard to quantify that work, and it's hard
I'm
to
just concerned about the ostensibly.
quantitably. The ostensibly is in there
I saw that.
because, as I mentioned, the GIS is an evolving system, and we do not have the workflows, all of the workflows that we could have at MPS served by GIS.
Okay.
So while I'd love to report that our mobile GIS is functioning, it can always be improved and should always be regarded as an evolving process, a workflow, not a product.
Please take my questions in the vein in which it was presented.
That's a good answer.
It really was, more than I deserved. And before we go much further, and it's been alluded to by a couple of people up here already, and I know that you asked a question of whether budgetary issues caused us to delay in GIS and those kind of things. I can think 100% answer is yes, because we waited for a long time. And there were those of us up here who didn't know how important GIS is or was. And I can tell the people listening at home that the implementation of our GIS system has been a wonderful advance for Moorhead Public Service. And I'm going to put that on your shoulders. You did a great job. The second observation I'm going to make is that Sam believes that all of us speak with an accent. So, we're going to miss you, Sam. We really are. Anybody else have any questions?
Well, I have one. You had a question on the definition.
Of course, so does he.
On the definition. I don't have a funny accent.
No, you think the rest of us do?
Actually, he has a funny accent.
So I'm gonna give it a shot here. So you had one of the question, Ken, about, you know, what does 85% complete mean? So that means that 15% are not complete.
Wow. Wow. You're smart, too.
Who's in charge of the agenda here?
Not you.
85 plus 15, carry the work.
Does anybody else have anything germane to the subject that they'd like to address to Sam?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
We're going to miss you.
Thank
I
you.
move to adopt the report.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. What now?
I don't think Sam had the gray hair on the side when he started with this either.
Yeah, a lot of us were, when we started, didn't have gray hair.
Is that our fault?
Mr. Schmidt, is there something you'd like to say?
Yes, I'd like to add just a little bit to that. Travis Schmidt, Electrical Engineering Manager. Like I said, Sam has done a spectacular job for us. We got some big shoes to fill for his position and going forward, but also want to thank Kurt McLean as well. He does a phenomenal job helping Sam try to get some of these things up and moving as well.
All kidding aside, we have a phenomenal group of people who work at Moorhead Public Service anyway, across the board, and we're very lucky to have our employees. We really are. Thank you for making those comments. Item 10 is to approve our summer voluntary watering restrictions. Christopher?
Chris Knutson, Water Division Manager. So this is an annual item we do every year as part of our DNR Water Conservation Plan. And we're actually in the process of updating that plan, and you'll see it shortly. But in our existing DNR water supply plan, we have a number of measures based on flows in the Red River, all sorts of different factors in terms of saving water during periods of high usage. This is one of the items that's in our existing plan that we've done for a long, long time, just to make sure that we decrease water demands during peak usage and generally just decrease water utilization.
Okay. Could I have a motion concerning this matter? Do you have a question, John?
Question.
Feel free.
Chris, could you just share, as far as this is voluntary, when, under what circumstances would a mandatory restrictions go in place? Do we have something like that?
We do have something like that in place. That's part of the DNR water supply plan. And as flows of the Red River hit a certain threshold, that's when we enact more stringent requirements for watering. We can cut off all residential watering at certain thresholds, and we would want to do that. So that's a part of the plan. It's just you'd actually have to approve that as well. You'd approve that measure, I believe, whenever we took that action.
Is that a chair question? Ralph?
One quick question. What's the level of the aquifer of the Buffalo? Is it still high, or have we
Still
seen a
high.
decrease?
Yeah, still really high. I mean, the last couple of years have been relatively wet, so
Let's hope we can keep it that
maintaining
way.
those levels, and we'll see, actually at the Committee of the Whole meeting on Monday, we'll present some updated information relevant to that.
How often do we measure that, or is it a continuous thing with the pumps in the?
It's continuous. It comes in real time in our SCADA system, so it just dumps into our historical server. We can queue it up whenever we want.
Perfect. Thanks.
Did you have a comment you were going to make?
Actually, maybe just a question for the Committee of the Whole on Monday. As we are preparing to have that conversation, are we going to talk about the expansion of our access to the aquifers as well, or the proposed idea?
Yeah.
So we'll get into that as a comparison to what it might take to continue to participate in the Missouri River
Correct.
plan, right?
Yeah. It'll be basically a rundown of the two options that it's presented at the Committee of the Whole meeting. That was the intent.
Okay.
And if I can interrupt before you go any further, Chris, and before we approve this report, Bill and I received an inquiry from a member of the City Council. Do you want to address that, Bill, and explain to the people out there the interrelationship with those rates and so forth?
Yeah, I was thinking this was a good time to do that. When we're talking about summer watering, there are mandated by the state of Minnesota conservation efforts that we have to comply with, and one of those that we utilize is rates that discourage a lot of lawn watering. Basically what we do is we look at the average usage in the wintertime, and we have a grace amount of 50%. So but then anything above 50%, your winter average, there's a higher water rate for. And we will get people that ask, because if they water a lot, it will impact them, and their bills will go from, I don't know, $20, $30 to $80, $90 in a month. And they'll wonder what happened. Well, those are summer watering rates, or summer conservation rates is really what we call them. It's on our website, it's in our rate schedules, but we do get a few people that contact us with that question on an annual basis.
So if I, on average in the winter span, use 100 gallons, if I in the summer use 200 gallons, I will pay a higher rate for the additional 50, right?
Yep, exactly.
And the inquiry was based on somebody who has a garden who does apparently an awful lot of watering, and they thought it was somehow discriminatory against senior citizens. It's not. It's something we simply have to have for all water users within the community. And Bill has tried explaining it on other occasions, and I thought it was important that we explain it again.
Chris, does DNR or any of these authorities, do they regard water that's rolling past us any differently than they regard water that is in an aquifer or a reservoir? It seems to me that there's a difference in what that resource is. If it's in a river and it's rolling past and we're taking some of it, but most of it's going by, as opposed to drawing down something like an aquifer.
They're starting to look at that more, but I should say the way they look at it now is based on usage. So they have a priority system for who gets use first, basically. Municipal's number one, number two is commercial industrial, number three is agricultural, and so on and so forth. I believe there's 6 categories of usage, and they'll actually pull permits based on the category of user that you are. So I think back in 2012, 2013, when it was a little drier to the north of us in Grand Forks, they actually ended up pulling quite a few golf course permits during that time period. So indirect answer to your question, they're starting to look at, especially in the Twin Cities, utilization from groundwater versus surface water, and how do they incentivize utilization of surface water in comparison to groundwater. They haven't done it yet.
With what's happened at White Bear Lake and so forth, that's
Correct.
caused a lot of attention to be focused on those very questions.
Yeah.
And we learned years ago, and we had drawn down the aquifer. The aquifer had gone down years ago, and Cliff McLean was still with us. And then there was a question about what the impacts were on other wells out in the agricultural area. And we had to protect some of the people out there who did have wells that were experiencing problems, and that's as it should be. But I think so far we've been a pretty good steward of the aquifers in terms of rebuilding and regenerating the level of water that's in them. And of course, when you talk about that surface water running by in the red, Fargo has a different licensing situation than Moorhead does. We can only withdraw that amount that we can use, so to speak. Fargo has an unlimited use of drawing water out of the red, which there are those of us who don't think that's quite right. I know that Heidi raised some questions earlier this year about Fargo selling its water to West Fargo, which otherwise it wouldn't have access to the red. So there's a lot of very serious questions, and as one of our previous commissioners said, water is going to be the next huge issue, and it's already starting to be so in many parts of the country. It's fighting words, yeah. Anything further, Chris?
Actually, I just wanted to clarify that they haven't addressed that in the statute yet, the difference between groundwater and surface water, but I think they're looking at options. They've modified the DNR supply plans a great deal since we originally approved ours in 2009. You'll see some of those modifications in the next few months when we come to you for approval of that plan.
Well, and DNR is getting a tremendous amount of heat as well for not monitoring the use of those wells and for having municipalities and private users or commercial users using many times what they've been licensed to use with no
there was some litigation.
Consequences.
Litigation against the DNR, of course,
Yep.
and I believe most of it's been settled, but.
We can talk more about this afterwards, but yeah, I'm just thinking, surface water in a lake is then also different from a river that's running past us too. And we can get more into that later.
And I think that we were also going to make this part of our strategic discussions when we had meetings down here that haven't been scheduled for whatever reason. But anyway.
That was subtle.
Well,
Not very.
these are huge, important subjects for us, and we should be paying a lot of attention to them. Anyway, anything further, Chris?
Nope.
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That brings us down to item 11, which is to approve a change order. This is change order number 2 for the I-94 and 12th Street South Water Main Relocation Project. Why are we already up to 2?
Bill, did you have something from the previous item, or?
Well, the only thing I had from the previous item was that on Monday, we have that committee of the whole meeting, and if any of the commissioners, other than, I know Ralph isn't able, but Dave Anderson's going to be there, if anyone else would like to be there, we can take one more without doing a public meeting notice, but Casey's going to have to know if if more than one are going to come. So I know, John, you've come to some of those committee of the whole meetings. So, yeah, more than two. So Dave and maybe John. So just a
Sounds like
reminder.
Joe fell off his stool back there.
Yeah. So
Yep.
anyway, because they'll be meeting down here and they'll be having a good discussion about it.
That'll be
You're
nice.
certainly welcome to join us.
Well, and we do need to have the MPS strategic planning sessions scheduled and addressed as well.
Yep.
Item 11, Chris.
Change order number 2 for the I-94 and 12th Street water main relocation. So your question was, why are we up to number 2? I'll back up as to the intent of the project to explain the answer to the question. The intent of this project is to lower the water main as the new interchange at 8th Street and I-94 is taking, I believe, 4 feet of grade off the existing water main. This one puts us at about, I think, 10 or 12 feet of cover in most places for the new water main relocation. Because of the early spring, Celine actually jumped on this project right away, and as a result of that, MnDOT indicated to us they'd like us to wait until phase 1 of the DDI is complete before we begin our portion of the project. And the reason would be they want to stockpile dirt exactly where we want to dig a huge pit to drill this new water main in. So because it's a MnDOT-sponsored project, MnDOT's reimbursing MPS for the cost for the project, we felt it was appropriate to recommend approval of change order 2.
Okay. Any questions?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, the same sign. Number 12 is to approve the professional services for the water treatment plant remodel conceptual study.
This is a interesting one. We're looking at remodeling the lab in the existing water treatment plant. So the water treatment plant was constructed in 1995. Since that time, we've actually added a couple staff in the water treatment plant and hoping to optimize the space a little bit more than what it is right now. Basically, we have a state-certified lab that sees a lot of water plant operator traffic through that lab. And with the water plant operator traffic brings a lot of dust, debris, and other contaminants into the lab. We'd actually like to create a separate lab specifically for the purpose of operations and the operators that so dutifully run our plant. So that's the intent, and we're looking at some options in terms of how we accomplish that and how we get that operator lab incorporated into the design to meet all the regulations associated with code and otherwise.
Any questions? Comments? Could I have a motion?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If you need some radio frequency equipment as a part of this remodel, you could probably talk to Joe about that. Item 13 is to approve consulting services for leadership training and culture initiatives. Who's speaking to this?
I'll speak to this one. This is a recommendation from the general manager and the HR committee. I've been working with the HR committee on some initiatives for both leadership and for working on the MPS culture. And we have selected a consultant who did a survey of the employees, and we would like to continue to work with that consultant to do leadership training and continue on with phase 2 of the process, which will include additional meetings and, like I said, some training, some further surveys, and continue with that. The individual that we've been working with is Tanya Stindy from Dale Carnegie Business Group, and she's been pretty active in town, and she's
Pretty.
yeah, she's around there. So so she's met with us a number of times, and I think we'd like to continue that.
Okay, well, was this, I don't recollect this. I don't know if, was this at a meeting that I did not attend because I know I was,
It was a meeting that you were unable to attend.
that still, I did not
That
attend,
sounds better
correct? Okay.
than did not attend.
Well, arose by any other name, you know?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Bill and I discussed this, and since the cost was a little higher than we originally thought,
Okay.
we both agreed that it should come before the commission if there are any concerns, issues, questions, and get approval from the group as a whole. I endorse it, by the way.
I was just going to ask
Yes.
your feelings on the subject, because we
Absolutely.
haven't talked about it, at least I haven't.
No.
Comments, questions, inquiries? John?
A little bit more detail as far as the thought process of why it was needed, and then some additional comments about what the survey showed or what was the results of the surveys.
As far as why it is needed, I think in many organizations, I believe they are doing these types of, exercises, studies, surveys, and training. And I think that's probably indicative of where Moorhead Public Service is as well. You know, we've got some turnover, or had turnover, and continue to have turnover with employees, not necessarily because of culture, but as you get more and more turnover, I believe, you lose some of that culture when long-term employees have left. So I think it's not unlike you're seeing in other organizations. The survey itself, I think, I don't know, Nancy, if you recall the survey, I remember, whenever you do a survey like that and they ask questions about, how do you think the culture is and that type of thing, just like other surveys, the biggest thing that came up was communication could be improved. And, so we're working on that. I think, relationships, since we're an organization that has basically 3 locations, it's tough to get people basically just running into each other. So I think some of the things that will be looked at is how do we accomplish that so we can build relationships between people, between divisions, and those types of things. When you do a survey like that, you kind of cringe thinking, okay, this isn't going to be good when the survey comes back. And actually, I thought the survey came back, fairly positive. And like I say, communications was a big issue, and we've got to do things to make sure and improve communications.
Let me bring it down to a different level than Bill. Bill gave us the macro of other organizations do this. I think that the HR committee felt that there was a direct need within our organization to improve levels of communications and so forth amongst our employees. No negative reflection on our employees whatsoever, because as I said earlier, we've got some of the best employees any organization can ever have. But we wanted to improve that level of communications, and that also has to do between management staff and subordinate staff. And so Les and I think early on felt it was something that we had to do in order to improve all that. And Les, you can correct me if I'm wrong with that.
No, that's part of it. The other part of it in our commission evaluation of the general manager, one of the few things that came up as a concern from our point of view in our private conversation in there, which is perfectly legitimate and legal. Mm-hmm. And one of the issues that did come up was this very, very issue about communications and attitude of our employees and relationships between and among different groups within it. And Bill took the initiative and made the contacts and organized this as we expected him to do. And this is the result. And again, I'm endorsing it completely.
Yes.
Same here. I've been in every with every employer I've worked with, we have done these. It's good to bring an outsider in or outsiders in for these events. Things tend to be more open and frank. We also have to address the generational gap as the millennials come in. There are certain expectations that they have, and I think this is one way to bring that out. So I support this as well. I mean, we've talked earlier, I mean, the reason we are who we are in a positive way is because of the team. It's not about the pipe in the ground and the lines above ground. It's about the people who take care of it. And if this is one way to improve that even further, by all means, let's go for it.
So you're telling us that the product that is sitting to the right of me is partially the result of this kind of a process?
Well-trained and intelligent and handsome and the whole thing, yeah.
I move approval.
I hope that that wasn't a motion.
I move approval.
I second that.
Okay.
Just to
Just
get
to
us
stop
beyond
this,
stuff,
okay,
yeah.
all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carried. Anyway, the meeting will now go into closed session. Did you have a comment?
On a different matter. I was a little surprised by you being here, so I neglected to bring up a question on the consent agenda.
I shocked you that much?
Yes, it
Okay.
was, yeah. So on the strategic plan, on section 2.4C, we have some potential issues with our audit. It appears, and that then if there's issues with our audit, then that appears it would be in line, that would have issues with our bonding, which then would result in challenges with financing our projects that we are talking about, is how I'm thinking I'm reading this. So clarification maybe from Nancy as far as, has there been a resolution to the questions brought at this point, or is it still in question?
Nancy Lund, Admin and Finance Manager. So in the strategic plan, action item 2.4.c, I did include a quite extensive paragraph talking about the two things that we're still working with the auditors on for the 2015 audit. The first being a GASB 68 accounting entry to put some pension liability on our financial statements, as is every other municipal in the country is doing that too. So that one won't be a problem. It's expected this year. It's also the reason we've delayed the financial statements. Auditors are just swamped right now trying to get through this GASB 68 process. So you'll notice we normally have our audit in the month of May, and we'll be into June before we get that, because they are just backlogged doing reviews of GASB 68 implementation. The other item that comes into play there is right now, because we had a poor sales year in 2015, so revenues were down about $1 million from where we anticipated and where we budgeted. A combination of that and the monies that were expended for the power plant have resulted in what we would term right now a negative net revenue for the utility on the electric side. And so it does involve the power plant and the cleanup of the power plant, and whether we viewed that expenditure as an asset that we could recover at some future point or an expense is what we're having the auditors take a look at. And we've asked them to reconsider 2014 financials and move a portion of that power plant cleanup back into 2014, so it can be reflected as an expense in 2014, which will leave us with then a positive net revenue in 2015.
Were we anticipating it in the other direction based upon the possibility of receiving TIF funds at some point in time?
That was part of it, right, yeah, that
Okay.
we did anticipate a partial reimbursement of those from those TIF activities.
Okay.
So this year we may have, two items that come up during the audit. We're still waiting for Eide Bailey to do final review on the power plant cleanup and the reclassification, and we'll keep you updated as soon as we find that out.
Does that answer your question, John? Any follow-up?
Well, obviously, it's a concern here, depending on how they decide as far as how that will impact us. And just a side note, as far as the reason I think it's important to discuss, and we should have this, I guess, each time we get an update as far as what we're having here. This also has a significant impact on our cash reserves. And I think it's noted also in the plan that we're significantly lower. We're going to get lower reimbursement from the feds, so there's significant issues that I can see here if this is not somehow addressed.
Right. I mean,
With our
we will
plan.
have to explain that when we go for bonding. We're in the early stages of a bond issue, and in fact, at the next commission meeting, you'll be asked to ask the city council to approve a bond sale. So we will be working with our financial advisors on that process and putting together a good plan, a good, strong plan for going forward. You know, we'll have to acknowledge we did the cleanup, we did it, we paid for it, it's behind us, and we've got to have a good plan going forward. So
We really
we'll
didn't have
look
any choice in that regard.
Right, yeah, we'll look at our rates and we'll look at our reserves and we'll plan for the next several years going forward.
Well, the good news is, even though we get a lower reimbursement from the federal government, we are getting some reimbursement, so we may, instead of using it for 3 years and putting reserves, we may have to use 4 or 5 years. At least we can show a plan that we're going there. I mean, we've talked about the reserve issue now for 3 years here, and where are we now, 104 days, somewhere in there?
I think that's close to my last projection, yes.
Which is somewhat less than 170 where we should be.
Which is low.
Yes.
Yep.
It's really low, and, you know, I mean, as long as we have a plan, we just need to be aware of it, and hopefully we can sell that to bond council to say, listen, here's the plan, here's why we are low, and here's the plan to get higher. And I think with that reimbursement or that the money coming in, that will be good.
Right, and if you recall, last time in 2012, when we sold bonds, we did get a bond rating upgrade, and so this time around, we will be hoping to maintain that upgrade, you know, and have a strong financial plan going forward from here into the future.
Is the city doing a bond issue at the same time, or is it just us?
They bond every year. I'm not sure the timing on that. Occasionally, we've been able to coordinate and share some costs, like on the official statement or something like that, but I'm not sure if the timing's going to work out this year to do that at the same time with them or not.
And the city's rating has maintained, right? I mean, when they went up at the same time as we did, or we as a, and has maintained at a high level, right?
Actually, I don't know that for sure. I haven't heard that it's changed, so I think it probably has remained stable.
And I think at the time that they went up, part of that was due to the fact that we came up with a plan in terms of managing the transfer, at least to some degree.
Yeah, that will definitely be to our advantage going into this bond rating call too, that's one big improvement we've made since we last went before the Bond Rating Council in 2012. The other was we've implemented some changes in our rate structure too that allow us to make purchase power adjustments. So that was a big item for them, that we can adjust easily and adapt our rates as needed when power supply changes.
On the reserve issue, I mean, is this something that we can do more aggressively from a policy perspective to let bond council know that we actually are serious about raising the reserve level up? I mean, could we do something else, dedicating the money from FERC, or whatever, it's not FERC money, but the money directly into reserves for 2 or 3 years? Would that make a difference to them, or is what we're doing, do you think, is enough?
We'll take a look at it as we get that developed, and we'll get some input from those financial advisors too as to how they best think we should position ourselves for the next 2 or 3 years. I think the rating agency is always impressed with the commission and their willingness to do what needs to be done, raise the rates when we need to do it. And so I think that's a really strong point going forward. Having a 5 or 10-year financial plan is also very important going forward, that you set those goals and things happen. Power plant needs to be cleaned up. We need to do that. We get those done, but then we get back on track and put our plan together for the next 5
Well, and the
to 10
general
years.
public has to understand that we do have to, in fact, adjust on an ongoing basis
Yes.
based on all of the things that happen within the marketplace.
Yep.
Well, that's why you have reserves, right?
Yep.
That's
Yeah, well, that's exactly it.
what you do.
That's why they're there in the first place. Any further questions?
Just one further comment, and it's in the general manager's report, and it's related to what Nancy was talking about at the very beginning, which is nationwide electric sales are down. They've been down. MMUA said electric sales fall for the 5th time in the past 8 years. So it's not uncommon for this to have happened industry-wide. They said theirs went down in 15 to over 14, 1.1%. Ours was 4%. So, I mean, we were hoping when we did the transfer agreement that we would actually have strong increase, maybe a couple of businesses expanding, but we didn't get that, and we actually went backwards. So that was unfortunate.
That take-
Nothing we could do about it, but that was unfortunate.
Anything further on that issue? I find it rather curious that you quote from the general manager's report when it suits your fancy. Okay. Going on to the next item, we're going to be going into closed session. As permitted by Minnesota statute, section 13D05, subdivision 3C3, to discuss offers or counteroffers for the purchase of Red River Valley Cooperative Power Association and XL Energy service territories located in the recently annexed areas of Oak Park Township, and as permitted by Minnesota statute section 13D05 subdivision 3A, to evaluate the performance of our general manager, which has been a subject that has been delayed in the past, so everybody knows. And it's, could I have a motion to go into closed session?
Before we do that, do we expect to return?
Do we have?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we do have items
I
that
would
we'll be
think so.
acting on. Okay.
So I move we go into closed session and probably return to open session for action following.
Okay, is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll now go into closed session, and we will return. Thank you, Les, for that question.
He has all the words. He has all the words.
And the accent.
You can't.
Did you guys do a motion to reopen?
Did you tell them?
I did. That's what was that? They fired that.
So you didn't do a motion to reopen yet?
Yes, we're going to in about a moment. Oh, we did?
I made the motion to go back.
Okay, this is, we're back in open session after our executive session. We took a couple of steps tonight and are willing to take some action. Casey, would you read back to us, please, the motion relative to the Red River Valley Co-op agreement?
Sure.
Thank you, Casey.
The motion is to approve the agreement as presented, subject to final verification of the dollar amount in section 2.1 by the third-party engineers, and contingent upon receiving written confirmation from Red River Valley Cooperative Power Association that allows Moorhead Public Service to conduct the necessary activities to extend its facilities into Oakport Township in order to prepare for the transfer of electric service.
Okay, who's making that motion?
I am.
Okay, is there a second? I have a motion and a second relative to the Red River Valley Co-op matter. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. The second item in our closed agenda was the scheduled review of our general manager, Mr. Schwant. And Ralph, would you like to report on that, please?
Yeah, so I'm going to move that based on our independent evaluation of the general manager, we have come to the conclusion that his performance has been satisfactory or higher. And I move that we, in accordance with the MPS compensation structure, we grant the general manager the step increase as of the effective date of April 1st, which is your anniversary date.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? You had a comment?
Yeah, I have a comment. So, Bill, thanks for your great work.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for your great work, too. Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. A couple pats on the back. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries as well. And Bill, I echo what Ralph just said. You do a great job for Moorhead Public Service, and I hope that the people in the community recognize all that you do for us and for them. Anything further? This meeting's adjourned.